Thank you, Ben, and once again, good afternoon to you, and thank you each for attending the 2022 annual meeting of the Nebraska Rural Radio Association. It is now time to present the 35th Annual Service to Agriculture Award. This honor is presented annually to someone who has demonstrated significant contributions to rural Nebraskans. Former U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Clayton Yiter was presented with the very first Service to Agriculture Award in 1987. The list of those receiving this honor is certainly long and includes many of the most notable leaders across the state. The Board of Directors continues the tradition of selecting an outstanding individual for this year's award. Unfortunately, the recipient is no longer with us, but they gave us a unique opportunity. So instead of an acceptance speech, I invite you to direct your attention to one of our TV monitors.
The 2022 Service to Agriculture Award recipient is the late Otto Geiger. Otto was the son of Robert and Martha Geiger, who moved to Eustis, Nebraska in the spring of 1931. He followed the German tradition of the oldest son staying at home and farming until he was drafted into the Army in May of 1952, where he served in the Korean War. On Otto's first day back from the service, he met his future wife, Marlene Jensen. Otto and Marlene made their home on the Geiger family farm, southwest of Kozad, where they raised their family, farmed, and resided their entire married lives. Over the years, the Geigers have raised corn, alfalfa, wheat, soybeans, sugar beets, and sunflowers. Otto became very skilled in the shop and was a pioneer in the minimum tillage movement in Dawson County during the early 1960s. The Geigers also raised cattle, operating a cow-calf operation. While he was dedicated to his farming operation, he was also committed to serving the public in many ways. Otto joined the board of the Nebraska Rural Radio Association in 1973.
He got on the board because he was recommended by Harold Stevens, who was then county agent, who talked to my father, Max Brown, who then was the general manager. And Harold said, this is going to be a good one. He's a little quiet, but he's a future leader, highly organized. He's also flexible, and he's ready to go to work and good listener, and he'll learn. And that's precisely what happened.
The phone rang one morning, and it was Max Brown, general manager of KRVN, the first general manager. And we did not know him very well. Listened to KRVN, but didn't know any of the names that went with it. And he asked Otto if he would consider being on the board. And Otto looked at me, and I didn't know what to say. And so between the two of us, he said, yes, I'll try it. Let me know what I need to do. And that was the first time.
He continued his service for more than 30 years, serving as president for many of them.
He was a great president. He had an opportunity to run a lot of meetings, and he was efficient in the way he ran his meetings. He would always welcome everybody, and the meetings ran smoothly, and I respected that with him. The other thing that Otto would do would be to call me sometimes between those quarterly meetings. And he would fill me in on some things that were happening since our last meeting. And then he would also have an opportunity to make sure if I had any questions that I would have an opportunity to ask those. And he was very caring that way as a president. So.
I remember his presence at the board. He was very quiet, very thoughtful fella. And of course, being new on the board, I had no real appreciation for how much experience he'd already seen, realizing that he was on the board when KRVN started out in their mortuary building, and he was on the board when they built the new building, and he was on the board when they bought KTIC and KNEB, added those to the rural radio family. So when he spoke, I paid attention to what he had to say, but he didn't say a whole lot. I mean, just a very reserved, quiet fellow, respectful, kind, easy to talk to.
But he ran a good board meeting, understood the numbers part of it very well, and also could look down the road a little bit and ask good questions, such as the new building. what people are enjoying right now. Buying that, I got pretty well grilled by Otto and Howard Lamb. In fact, Howard Lamb was going so hard that some other board members started to feel sorry for me. So after all this grilling, Howard was a former state senator, member of the executive committee. He knew how to grill somebody. I got all done. Howard made the motion. Let's do it. So it passed unanimous.
He had a philosophy of that if you're going to live here, you're going to dedicate yourself to making it a better place and doing what you can to have it be the best area that it is. And so he had a real sense of service, and that's something that we all can admire.
One of the last big projects that Dad took part in was the construction and implementation of the 1,000-foot tower south of Lexington. And it took years, and it was very interesting. You know, the work with the FCC, purchasing property, so many hoops to jump through, so much legal information to know. And eventually the tower was constructed. It still stands there today. And when we're in the living room at the house at the lake, we can look across the water and it blinks at us all night long. And it's just a wonderful memory, and there's a lot of pride associated with that, to think that that was a big project and one of Dad's last big things that he did there. It's really great.
I am just really honored and pleased to be able to share some of my thoughts and some of my special memories that I have of Otto, and to really congratulate Marlene and all of the family that Otto can be honored this way. And that's really important to so many of us that knew Otto and worked with him.
We're pleased to and proud to be able to do this.
And we thank you for it.
Congratulations to the 2022 Service to Agriculture recipient, the late Otto Geiger.
Thought I could do this, but I don't know, it hit me harder than I thought it would. I'm just deeply humbled, deeply appreciated for the Nebraska Rural Radio Association, for KRVN, for all the board, and it was just Otto and my pleasure to spend as many years as we did with the KRVN board. It was just so special that I can't say anything else except thank you. Janet, you want to say something?
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I was young when Dad started this process. I was only 6 years old, 5 or 6. And I remember the long trek out, the first time we went to Fort Robinson. KRVN had a meeting out there, and I remember that takes forever to get out there when you're only 6 years old. That's a long darn ways to drive. And I remember those parties and the times at the lake. Eric Brown remembers these. We had a huge grill, and there would be 75 to 80 New York strips lined up on that grill, and Dad and I and Eric Brown will be flipping steaks, and it was the annual it was just everybody got together and had a good time as a board of directors, and I remember those times. And of course the old radio and all the tractors back then, AM radio is all you had. And then Dad got a pickup with AM FM, and it was electronic. And I remember about 10 years later, I used that pickup to go somewhere. And of course, I didn't want to listen to KRVN. I wanted rock and roll or something fun. So I tuned in FM. I think that radio had burned 880 into it. It could not pick up anything else. It was doomed. It was a KRVN radio. It was done. So that was our radios. Everything was always tuned to this station that's the only thing I remember Dad ever listening to. There was never anything else but KRVN on every station, on every radio on the farm. So, but I thank every one of you, and yeah, this hits me pretty good too. I look up to Dad, and there's days I feel like I'm kind of, wow, you did a lot. And I still got a few years left in me to try to at least get close to him. So thank you all for this.
I might just add at this time, I have never seen my daughter Janet at a loss of words. It's a first, I tell you. And
if
also,
you live long enough, Mom.
I plan to. And at this point, I'd like to introduce Otto's brother Raymond Geiger and his wife Judith. Would you please stand up? We just had to have Raymond here. He's been a stalwart in our family too, so thank you, Raymond.